In today's episode of Today in World War II, April 2nd, the Royal Air Force organizes the exact opposite of the Boston Tea Party for the Dutch resistance in the Netherlands. The U.S. Hornet departs from San Francisco with an interesting cargo. King Boris of Bulgaria gives the middle finger to Hitler in regards to their Jews. The Soviet Third Army Ukrainian Front, should say, captures a very strategic object inside Hungary. And finally, Himmler tries to work a deal with a Swedish diplomat for a separate peace. We'll see how that goes. Well, let's get started. Okay, so on April 2nd, 1941, the Royal Air Force decided that they wanted to do a solid, a morale booster for the poor population in the Netherlands. So what they did was they packed up 75,000 tea bags and dropped them over the Netherlands. And the bags were printed with the message, Holland will rise, keep your courage up. And that was a really good gesture. And that was, it's people make light sometimes of these very small gestures, but they mean a lot. You have the morale is very important, especially when you're being occupied by a brutal Nazi fascist regime. And let's face it, I mean, the Germans at a drop of a hat will kill you. And it can be easy for citizens to lose hope and lose their patriotic fervor. And when that happens, they're more susceptible to becoming informers, working, collaborators, and so on and so forth. The Americans did something very similar in the Philippines when they introduced by subs these matchbooks, and they had MacArthur's picture on the front. On the back, it said, "I shall return." And you know, again, they're matchbooks, right? But it really meant a lot to the Filipinos that they were not being forgotten, that they had hope, and that they knew that if they just were patient, that the occupation would end when the Americans came and freed them from the Japanese. Same psychology the RAF here is using with the Dutch. So, 4 stars, 5 stars, actually. That was awesome. On April 2nd, 1942, the U.S. aircraft carrier Hornet departed the Alameda naval base in San Francisco, and they had a very interesting cargo on board. Normally, the aircraft on an American aircraft carrier at the time consisted of Devastator torpedo bombers, the Dauntless dive bombers, and the F-4F Wildcat fighters. Well, in this case, their landing deck was full of B-25 bombers, 16 of them, and the commander of this squadron, these were Army aircraft, by the way, Army aircraft B-25s, James Doolittle, who would eventually earn the Medal of Honor from this operation. They were on their way to bomb Japan. So on this date, they left. Give it a few days, and we'll be talking more about this in this chronicle. On April 2nd, 1943, um, King Boris III of Bulgaria basically gave Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop the middle finger and said, "Yeah, we've got 25,000 Jews in Bulgaria, and no, we're not going to turn them over to you. We don't care about any alliance that we have here. We don't care about no stinking alliance." Okay, so at the most, the king said that the Bulgarian government might intern them, but that's it only under government, or excuse me, on Bulgarian control. And I want to say, for a fascist, authoritarian, right-wing government, at least they did the right thing when it came to their citizens and didn't turn them over like, what happened in other countries. So good for them. Like what happened in Hungary. I'm looking at you, Hungarians. Don't think I've forgotten you, what happens in 1944. And in April 2nd, 1945, with assistance from the same Bulgarian units who now switch sides because that's what you do when the Soviet behemoth is coming to take over. The Soviet Third Ukrainian Front captured the main Hungarian oil production area, and I will not pronounce this correctly, so I'm not going to try. It sounds like Nagy something, but I know that Nagy is actually pronounced Noj. in Hungarian. That's all I know about Hungarian. So, but again, this was crippling for the Germans. But again, if you think about it, you know, 30 days left, 35 days left in the war anyway. But still, it made a bad situation worse by cutting off the Germans' main oil supply. And Romanian oil from Ploesti and Hungarian oil, that was the main source of German petroleum throughout the war, no matter how many times that the U.S. tried to bomb him. And finally, on April 2nd, 1945, our old buddy Heinrich Himmler, he met secretly with a Swedish diplomat, Folke Bernadotte. Sounds like a really bad Swedish woman folk singer. Anyway, he was desperately trying to use Bernadotte's help to convince the Allies, the Western Allies, not the Soviets, to broker a separate peace with Germany. At this time, the Germans still held out hope that somehow they could convince Churchill and FDR to say, "Screw the Soviet Union. We're going to go ahead. We're over here anyway. Our armies are here anyway. Let's just go ahead and get World War III over with, and we'll join you, and we'll all attack the Soviets and defeat them." Well, that was not going to happen. But then again, the Nazis were not well known for their high intellectual level. Let's put it that way. This was never going to work. And it didn't, of course. But Hitler was desperate. I mean, excuse me, Himmler was desperate. And good for fate and karma that this didn't work and he ended up having to kill himself later. Well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for this watching my video. I appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow.